Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.
Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good Tuesday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. It's the 12th of April, and as always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information by going to weather.gov/Alaska, and from there is a great place to click over on the left side that says Hydrology. That'll take you to the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center. That is the group of people that'll be working their tails off as we go ahead in the next couple weeks, watching for Alaska's breakup, and it has begun. We'll have a picture of the water and the ice that has gone out at Nikolai there in the Upper Kuskokwim in just a minute. Again, that website's weather.gov, and if you want to just jump right on over to the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, just use their initials, APRFC, and just weather.gov/APRFC. Easy to do. The weather info line will give you the weather forecast, 800-472-0391. You can find images that we'll be posting throughout AK Breakup on Facebook at NWS Alaska, on Twitter using the hashtag AKwx, and of course on YouTube. We're passing on our daily afternoon map briefings. Those will be online around 4 o'clock or so, and they give you a sneak peek at what's going on around the state with our surface weather charts. And if we have some big news, we like to pass it on there as well. So that's a daily occurrence. You can subscribe to it and always know when it's available. It should just pop right up on your phone there. And it's internet friendly as well, so it won't take too much of your bandwidth if you're out in the bush or even on the road system. Here's a look at the spring flood potential that was created yesterday. We'll have a little bit more in-depth information about this tomorrow when my friend Selena Van Breukelen comes on from the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center and talks about what we can expect for breakup around the state. So I don't want to give you too much just yet because she's the expert. She'll have all the nitty-gritty details. But we're already seeing things change there in the Upper Kusko. You can see there is one orange dot on this entire map. That is the Sag River, and like last year, we're expecting to have at least some flooding there along the Sag River as we go throughout the breakup period there. So keep that in mind, but a large part of southeast, south central, and the upper Tanana all looking at below average snowmelt runoff compared to the average. So things probably not quite as dire as what could be compared to a normal year. But again, we'll see what she has to say about that tomorrow. The Upper Kuskokwim ice goes out at Nikolai. This was the news that came in today. Perhaps it's old news to you if you're there. It might have been yesterday's news, but Jeremy Tickner was kind enough to share his picture with us there, and we certainly appreciate that. You can do the same thing anytime you want by going to weather.gov/APRFC. Send it to us on Twitter at NWSAPRFC, and if you use the hashtag AKRiverWatch, you can get the attention of the National Weather Service, the Riverwatch teams in your area, as well as the state of Alaska. And all of these groups will be partnering together to help keep your village and all the other villages safe from flooding during the breakup period there. So we appreciate pictures like this. It makes a huge, huge difference in how we do what we do. And hopefully that will have some impact in helping you and your community. You can help too. So thank you, Jeremy, and thank you everyone for sending us your pictures there and posting those on Facebook or to email. Big, big deal there. Here's the breakup map for today. And you can see some of those changes around Nikolai. We have now changed that color to some open, and most rivers in most of Alaska are still mostly white, indicating mostly ice. But you can also see the Upper Susitna there, Little Susitna, showing at least some open there. And we've got our rivers in southwest Alaska already opened up as well. So watch for changes there. You can track this map. You'll see exactly this map every day if you go to aprfc.arh.noaa.gov or weather.gov/APRFC. Either way, it'll get you to the same exact place. So that's where we stand today. Here's a look at the satellite picture, and our big low pressure system that's been sitting in the Gulf of Alaska is just kind of fanning out. It's throwing pieces north and west and east, and the moisture that's been associated with that is kind of spreading out in a big plume and really starting to focus on more of the Yukon and the northern Gulf than anywhere else. So drier air has made its way into south central Alaska, and as a result, places like Anchorage set another record high today. Out across the North Pacific, you can see our next weather makers moving in across the central and western Aleutians, but because of the jet stream that's taking most of that storm path well south of Alaska, the risk of this system moving into the Aleutians as a larger storm is not with us. It's going to stay and move generally to the south of the state, probably not become a major or a big headline weather maker at all. So what we have is drier air developing across the central and western interior. We have our clouds that have been sitting across the north slope for several days, and that really tight pressure gradient relaxing a little bit. There are no warnings, watches, or advisories for the north slope for a change after several days of winter weather advisories and even blizzard warnings there. The winds have settled down. Now that doesn't mean there won't be problems. It does look like there will be periods of blowing snow, and we had that again today. But what it means is it's probably not going to be as strong as it has been. So don't be surprised if the winds pick up and if the visibility goes down and the snow blows around. That's all probably going to happen from time to time in the next couple days. And in fact, it might even get worse again as we get into Thursday and Friday. But for right now, it's not reaching that more extreme level that we've seen for the last couple days. So that is good news. As we look for central and southern parts of southeast, you can see there's drier air working your way, but keep your eye on this low pressure system here. This has a little bit of oomph to it. And with the lift and the heat that's being blown into the region, there is some level of instability with this, which means that the clouds could bubble up. And if they bubble up even more, would be surprised to get a thunderstorm some places around the Dixon entrance or into the Clarence Strait tonight across the southern outer coast. Don't be surprised if you hear the rumble of thunder in the evening. Now, probably not a great chance for that at this point tomorrow, but it's certainly worth watching there as that system is working its way northward. Out across southwestern Alaska, you can see you're getting into a few more areas of clouds there from Dillingham to King Salmon, but relatively dry conditions between Bristol Bay and St. Paul. And the clouds are going to pick up, and the wind should pick up for the central and western part of the chain as we go into the next couple days. In the meantime, on the coastal areas of the Beaufort Seacoast, we still have gales in effect there. No blizzards anymore, but gale warnings are posted. As we look at the weather tonight, our low pressure system, again, is kind of fanned out in several pieces there. 985 to about 987 millibars there in the central Gulf. You can see we've got that gentle southeasterly flow coming into the Panhandle. And very dry conditions for Cook Inlet, the white you see across the Alaska Range and the Chugach and the Kenai Mountains. All of that, of course, is snow-capped mountains and not cloud cover in this case today. A beautiful day in south central and southwest. And even as you get into the lower Kuskokwim Valley and out toward the YK Delta, things are fairly dry and clear there. Temperatures soared into the 50s around Fairbanks today. Also a clear and dry day there. And into the Yukon, you can see the range and the Brooks heading eastward and all the way north. A little bit more low cloud cover across the coastal plain. Some reports of blowing snow once again. And low pressure and a little bit of light snow on the southern side of the Gulf of Anadyr, with another wave of low pressure working up out of the North Pacific at 968 millibars. Tonight, the focus for precipitation will stay across the Panhandle with the low around 995 millibars. The front that was in place pretty much falls apart there entirely. And you can see a trough sitting fairly close to the Alaska Range, and any focus for snow showers will likely be across the western and southern Yukon. There might be some pockets of blowing and drifting snow north of Fairbanks and into the hills and back over the Yukon. To the west, a better chance for some clouds, but let's say there aren't any clouds. What do you think you could see tonight? Well, with an active solar episode once again, there is a possibility, if you can find some clear, dark skies, that you might have a good chance of seeing the aurora, not only tonight, but maybe the next couple nights. So watch for the stars, and if the stars peek out, maybe you've got a shot. Out across the west, the central and western chain looking at a 984 millibar low, with the frontal boundary sneaking up to just about the Aleutians. And then this is probably about as far as it'll get before it drops southward again into the Gulf of Alaska. Clouds will probably continue to break up for the central and upper parts of the Yukon. Look for the north slope to see blowing and drifting snow, but the risk for additional snow should start to fall off fairly quickly. High pressure's trying to get a foothold there across the central and northern parts of the Panhandle and over Juneau at 1,013 millibars tomorrow. That should slow the winds down a little bit, and it should also help to break up some of the clouds. So showers will be pretty hit and miss, it looks like, throughout southeast tomorrow. For Prince William Sound and the eastern Kenai Peninsula, showers will be in the region, especially in the afternoon. And with the heat of the day, you can expect some of those to come and go fairly quickly or pop up and down. As you look out to the west, a better chance for showers across the Alaska Peninsula. Once you get out toward Dutch Harbor and Unalaska, it's still possible you'll see some rain mixed with snow. And around the lower Yukon into the middle Yukon Valley, you might still see some snow showers there. There's still plenty of clouds and enough cold air that could happen. And you might find that all the way out toward Nunivak Island and St. Matthew Island as the ice is continuing to change and quickly there. For Thursday, this entire pattern shifts eastward just a little bit more. Our frontal boundary is still trying to lift northward, but it's running out of gas, and with that, it starts to fall apart. Still sloshing some showers up across south central and southwestern Alaska and Kodiak Island. Even southeast doesn't get much of a punch from this at all. You'll see some light rainfall around the outer coast. Most of the inner channels are looking at clouds more than anything else. Snow showers are possible along the Alaska Range and just north, and they could be back for Fairbanks, that after a very warm day today, so winter's not over for you. High pressure across the northern Yukon will start to tighten up its grip again across the North Slope, and with that, winds may pick up across the northern coast. And watch for blowing and drifting snow once again there as we get into Thursday and Friday. We'll keep an eye on that for you right now. No watches, warnings, or advisories for you. Temps today, absolutely beautiful in southeast, upper 40s and lower 50s for Haines and Skagway, all the way down toward Petersburg, Ketchikan, and Annette, close to 50 degrees there, 50 in Hyder, 49 in Sitka, and about the same there for the capital city. 48 in Valdez, it was 51 in Cordova, lower 50s for Anchorage, 49 in Homer, and 53 in Seward. Talkeetna made it to 54 degrees, 49 around 3 o'clock in Fairbanks, with temperatures there peaking at around 50 this afternoon. 32 in Eagle, 45 in Northway. Fort Yukon saw 30 on the button. The same goes for AKwx Pass. Arctic Village was 27. Teens for Barrow, Atkasuk, Dead Horse, and Prudhoe Bay, 20 in Kaktovik. Lower 30s for Kivalina, above that freezing point there for Kotzebue. It was 32 in Shishmaref and 44 in Nome today. McGrath saw temps in the mid-40s. No wonder the ice is going out so quickly. And around Bethel, almost 50 degrees by 3 o'clock. 34 in Nunivak Island, 27 in St. Lawrence Island. And around the Alaska Peninsula, 40s and 50s there. Bristol Bay in the mid-50s, in fact, today. Kodiak 43, Dutch Harbor and Unalaska 39, 40 in St. Paul. Just shy of 40 for Adak and Atka, and 36 out in Shemya. Overnight low temperatures should stay above freezing for many in south central, and Kodiak Island will be close to 40. Same goes for most of southeast. The middle Tanana Valley should see lows in the mid-20s, so a little bit cooler for you. 9 above in Fort Yukon, 1 above for Barrow and Kaktovik. Kotzebue Sound temperatures in the teens and 20s, 27 in Nome, close to 30 for many of our YK communities, including Bethel, Amanak, all the way out toward Grayling and Aniak. Lower 30s for Bristol Bay, 29 in St. Paul, and mid-30s for most of the chain and the Alaska Peninsula, with highs there tomorrow back in the mid-40s. Bristol Bay, you'll be at or even above 50 degrees tomorrow. Port Heiden looks pretty toasty. 41 around Amanak and McGrath, looking at 44. Nome 36. Kotzebue Sound temperatures should make it at least to 30 degrees. Kivalina could be even warmer at 36. 9 for a high in Barrow tomorrow. Ambler and Bettles in the mid-30s. It's still a little tough to warm those places up simply because there's still snow on the ground, in some cases 1 to 2 feet in a few areas. Mid-40s around the middle Tanana Valley. The Susitna Valley looking at highs in the 40s to mid-50s easily. Areas west of the Cook Inlet should be fairly toasty. 50 around Kenai and Anchorage. Mid to upper 40s around Prince William Sound, and southeast back in the lower 50s tomorrow. So enjoy your day however you can. Flying weather shows MVFR across the north coast and out over the Gulf. Watch for pockets of IFR in the morning. Not too many trouble spots to start, but you'll see a few develop there on the north side of the Seward Peninsula and in southern parts of Kotzebue Sound, west and south of St. Matthew, north of the Pribilovs, and really from Sandpoint westward toward the southern tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Those will be the hot spots to watch tomorrow. AKwx Pass and Adigan Pass look pretty good throughout your Wednesday. For Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, we're going to call VFR. Rainy Pass looks to be VFR. Windy Pass, we expect to see MVFR conditions develop throughout your day. Isabel Pass looks to be marginal by the end of the day. Mentasta Pass should clear up and improve. Tanita Pass looks to flip the other way, back to marginal conditions later in the day. Portage Pass, we also expect to see MVFR developing throughout your Wednesday afternoon. And Chilkoot and White Pass at this point, we're going to call marginal through most of your Wednesday. Freezing levels show that warm and wet air is spreading out. Just like we saw in the satellite picture, it's not as tightly packed, so we don't have that big stripy pattern across the Gulf of Alaska. In the meantime, the surface freezing lines drop south of Nunivak Island. It's trying to creep northward again with the increase of low pressure working northward in toward the central and western chain. Most areas there across the southern coast and the Gulf and the YK looking at an elevated freezing level of about 2,000 feet. Icing potential is pretty hit and miss as that moisture is spreading out. That makes sense. Around Prince William Sound and the Kenai Peninsula above 6,000 feet, you could run into some isolated moderate there west of St. Matthew as well, and across a broad area from the Alaska Peninsula and Sand Point all the way out toward Kiska and almost Attu above 4,000 feet there. Our jet stream is indicating our superhighway of weather is still well south of the Aleutians and over the Gulf with wind speeds there of 100 to 150 knots. And with the latest disturbance creeping up, it's actually pulling winds back to the west there around 50 knots just north of the chain. High pressure is giving us a little bit of a kick from the north across the North Slope at 60 knots there. That's also been encouraging those winds. That is settling down just a little bit at this point, but it's still driving winds in at 9,000 feet from about 15 to 25 knots from the north and east. Southeasterly winds coming in across the Panhandle and into the Chugach at around 15 to 20 knots. Look for more of an offshore flow from the YK Delta all the way out toward the western part of the chain with low pressure just south of Adak and Atka. And at 3,000 feet, really a very similar pattern here. Broad easterly flow working out of the Yukon and across the Yukon Valley all the way to the west and the Bering Sea coast at about 10 to as high as 25 knots. A little bit of a stronger flow flowing into Yakutat and eastern Prince William Sound at 30 knots. Our southeasterlies continue over the Panhandle, and south and easterly flow over places like Sand Point, False Pass, and Cold Bay with Adak and Atka into more of a northerly flow as we get into the end of the day. Turbulence potential then really focuses on areas around Cross Sound and into the north and eastern Gulf below 5,000 feet. Some chop there as well as the North Slope, watching for poor visibility from time to time too, and below 4,000 feet for the central Aleutians. That's a look at your aviation forecast. I'll have a look at the sea ice and, of course, your marine weather here in just a few minutes. Stay with us.
Welcome to the land of 10,000 smokes, a remote location within Katmai National Park in Alaska. 1 century ago, a volcano erupted here with such fury that it leveled a 40-square-mile area. And evidence of that volcano resides today in these walls of volcanic ash, 80 feet high. The volcanic eruption was so powerful, it altered the world's weather.
The ash cloud blocks sunlight to the lower 48, producing an unseasonably cool summer almost from coast to coast. The historic 1912 blast is known interchangeably as the Katmai or the Nova Rupta explosion. No single volcanic eruption since one in Greece 1500 BC is known to have displaced more volcanic matter. 80 miles southeast of the blast site on Kodiak Island, Alaska, it is still being talked about almost a century later.
I remember my mother just telling me how black it was, dark, for 7 days, you know.
7 days.
7 days.
Wow. Lifelong Kodiak resident and village elder Thomas Frost Jr. has heard about the historic explosion all of his life.
Well, see, the wind was blowing from the west, so if it was blowing the other way, it would have went to Japan.
A bright summer day on Kodiak Island suddenly vanished behind a black cloud of ash, captured approaching the island in this photo by a Kodiak mailman who was on a boat.
On June 6, 1912, at about 1 p.m., there was a large blast that was heard as far away as Cordova.
To put it in your perspective, if the eruption happened in New York City, people in Chicago could hear the eruption.
On the island itself, there were about 500 inhabitants preparing for the commercial salmon fishing season, and they were literally engulfed in darkness as this ash continued to fall.
Thunder and lightning, almost unheard of here on Kodiak Island and in this part of the world, arrived ahead of the ash cloud. For one 60-hour stretch, the cloud was so dense, the area was plunged into total darkness. It was said you could hold a lantern up at the end of your arm and not even see it.
Kodiak native and Harvard PhD, Dr. Sven Hawkinson.
I mean, can you imagine having your entire world just covered in ash?
No.
And no contact, and not knowing where it's coming from because there's no volcanic activity here on the island.
When we dig in the ground here down through the last 10,000 years of record, the Katmai is the largest that we see. And there are only a half a dozen or so that are similar to it in the last 10,000 years. And the most recent of those is about 3,000 years or a little more.
This is just a wonderful marker for us as archaeologists because it's so clear, it's so distinct, and so well documented.
The volcanic ash was everywhere. It even penetrated walls. Imagine being inside, as this piano was at the time, and having the ash pile up to a depth of 4 feet against it.
Volcanic ash is blasted rock particles. It's about the size of baking flour. It's highly abrasive. It's not like ash in your fireplace, which is carbon.
If you look at it under a microscope, it looks like broken light bulbs.
Kodiak residents have been treated to the full array of natural forces which shape Alaska. In 1964, Kodiak Island, just like Seward on the Alaska mainland, was swamped by tsunamis.
The highest waves were about 18 feet above regular sea level, and the lowest troughs were considerably more than that. In fact, the bay virtually drained.
Reports of water draining from harbors and coastlines just before tsunamis are common.
And I never believed it unless I saw it with my own eyes. I looked under it, the channel was dry. There wasn't a bit of water in there. And a few minutes later, here comes the water from the other direction, and the channel's full again.
The 1964 tsunamis shocked unsuspecting coastal communities all over Alaska, and years before the Sumatran quake and tsunami gave the world a taste of one of nature's true horrors. It had to be the same nearly a century ago as the ash cloud enveloped Kodiak Island. In an era before air travel or sophisticated communication systems, residents weren't even aware there was a volcano close enough to affect them, especially one powerful enough to level 40 square miles. The scars are still visible on the landscape today. For decades after the blast, vents spewed steam and gas into the air at the Novarupta site.
It's unfortunate, but the Valley of 10,000 Smokes no longer smokes.
But even after a natural catastrophe of this magnitude, ecosystems bounce back in amazing ways. One of the world's largest concentrations of bears in the wild are here, following the salmon which swim upstream near the Novarupta blast site. And when they eat too much, they dig into deep deposits of volcanic ash for its medicinal value.
The bears use it just like kaopectate that we use it for. They'll dig into the ash for the upset stomachs, eat it, and hopefully help their stomach problems.
It started as a tsunami special. Little did we think we'd see anything like this.
Oh, you got it.
Tried that once down around Kenai. It didn't work out so well. Here's a look at the sea ice edge, and you can see that the conditions there across the YK Delta all the way up into Norton Sound and south of the Seward Peninsula are really beginning to open up. There is still some shorefast ice around Nome, but not all that much. And our sea ice analysts tell us that a lot of what appears to be shorefast in your community may not be. In fact, it's becoming very dangerous. So make sure you know what you're getting into before you get out on it, as conditions are rapidly changing out across the Bering Sea coast. Right now, the main ice pack, they're colored in white, is still south of St. Matthew Island and north and west of Nunivak Island and south of St. Lawrence. But there is a lot changing there and a lot opening up very quickly, as many of you are well aware. As always, if you have pictures, you can share it with us online, on Twitter, on Facebook, or just call us and let us know. We'd love to hear what you have to say and what you see anytime. This image can be found at weather.gov/anchorage/ice.php. Here's a look at southeast, and you can see the winds are fairly light right now, about 10 to 20 knots all the way up and down the inner channels. A little more variable in the Lynn Canal, in fact. 4-foot seas as you get into the Clarence Strait. And a broad southeasterly flow coming up the outer coast at about 20 to 25 knots. Seas will hold around 14 feet outside of the Dixon entrance to 11 feet as you get up toward Icy Cape and Cape Fairweather around Yakutat at 25 knots. For Thursday, winds will kick up a little bit more from the southeast, becoming more southerly as you get into the southern and northern Lynn Canal, 15 knots with a 3-foot sea there. And south and easterly winds coming up the outer coast at 20 knots with 9 to as high as 11-foot seas there along the outer coast for Thursday. Light northeasterlies inside of Prince William Sound, 2-foot seas there. Look at the light winds inside of Cook Inlet. Only 1 to 2-foot seas expected tomorrow. Another nice day it looks like. North and westerlies coming across the Barrens at 15. Should be a smooth ride out to Kodiak with a variable flow inside of Shelikof Strait. 7-foot seas and a little choppier there around the island. But all in all, with light winds, that'll probably settle down for a while. Northwesterlies west of the Barrens, northeasterlies coming down Cook Inlet at 15 on Thursday. Easterlies inside of Shelikof Strait, and a little bit lighter winds there east of the island itself. Northeasterlies, so lay down again across Prince William Sound with easterlies moving over the north and western parts of the Gulf at 20 to 25 for Thursday. Inside Bristol Bay, 10 knots with a 2-foot sea. South and easterly winds on the Pacific coast, 15 to 20 with a 7-foot sea on Wednesday. Look for a little stronger wind from the southeast on Thursday for the Pacific coast. That means 7 to 12-foot seas and 3 to 5-foot seas down the Bering Sea coast with 15 knots inside of Bristol Bay on Thursday afternoon. For the Aleutians, northerlies are already going there from Kiska out toward Attu at 35 knots with a 17-foot sea. Look for east and northeasterly winds for the central and eastern chain, 25 to 30 knots with 5 to 9-foot seas from Unalaska to Adak and 8 to 14-foot seas from Unalaska to Adak on the Pacific side there, so slightly higher seas. Everything flips around to more of a north and westerly flow from Nikolsky all the way out towards Shemya on Thursday, 25 to 35 knots there in all areas, 16 to 18-foot seas along the Pacific coast. Northeasterlies will continue from Unalaska to Nikolsky at 20 knots with 7-foot seas on the Bering Sea coast and 16-foot seas there on the Pacific coast for Thursday. For the west coast, northeasterlies coming across St. Lawrence Island, 15 knots by the time they get to St. Matthew. The seas have opened up now north of Nunivak Island, enough so that we can forecast 1-foot seas there, 2-foot seas around the Kuskokwim Delta, and northeasterlies with 20 knots and a 4-foot sea for St. Paul and St. George on Wednesday. Becoming northerly as we get into Thursday afternoon with an 8-foot sea. Northerlies for St. Lawrence Island all the way down the YK coast at 20 knots with 2 to 5-foot seas there from Nunivak Island down toward the Delta, and northerlies for St. Matthew Island also at 20 knots. The winds have settled down for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, but they're still going around 30 knots for Wednesday. Northeasterlies coming down the Chukchi Sea coast at 20 to 25. By Thursday, you'll see those pick up a little bit more from Wainwright to Barrow at about 25 knots there, and we'll keep our easterlies going strong at 30 knots. Not quite as bad as it was the other day, but still capable of blowing some snow around and lowering visibility, so be careful out there. Here's a look at the forecast then tonight. Looks like pretty quiet conditions for south central and southwest. Once again, if you can find a clear spot, you might have a good shot at the aurora. For southeast, periods of light rainfall, maybe even a thunderstorm across southern parts of southeast tonight. The bigger story is what's moving across the central Aleutians, and even that is not that impressive. With winds coming up, there's an opportunity of rain and snow showers for the central chain. A few rain showers for south central and southeast as things dry up a little bit more, and pockets of blowing snow across the North Slope are back on Thursday with periods of rain across south central and southwestern Alaska. Thanks for watching Alaska Weather. I'll see you again here tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.